Do I start it or do you start it?
It's only the third episode, and we're already here. You started.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the History of Rock. His name is Brandon. He's the DJ.
His name is Shim. He's the rock star and the one forgetting exactly what we're doing. Again, we had like a year off from recording, and right before we started recording, Shim was like, so what do you want to do? What are we doing again? Mass confusion here on the History of Rock. But here we go, episode number 3, and we are doing a deep dive into Temple of the Dog, which...
Temple of the Dog.
I guess would be a supergroup before it could have been a supergroup, because Pearl Jam didn't really exist before Temple of the Dog, but it was really Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, kind of.
There's an interesting point in the notes that you've put together that we're going to get to, actually, of how the label didn't realize what they had until later. Yep. I love it. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be halfway through the podcast. Check it out.
So we're talking about Temple of the Dog. It's a self-titled album. It was released on April 16th, 1991. Of course, the songs that you've probably heard on the radio, you have Hunger Strike, which Shim, I was going to say sing it, but do you want to?
I mean, I can't sing the exact song, can I?
But you can shimify.
I can't believe trying to do both of them. Trying to do Eddie Vedder's parts and Chris Cornell. Singing the song now, sing a song now, yeah.
Wait.
There, man.
Now hold on, because
I can't sing the real lyrics. It's copyright infringement.
No, I know that, but what I'm going to mention is I just jokingly said to Shim before we started recording, would you be able to do a Scott Stapp impersonation if we ever got into a Creed album? And so he did, and I think I mean, you were kind of doing better, but I think you were more in the Scott Stapp range there.
Just then?
Yeah.
Are you seriously critiquing me now at this moment?
It was a little Scott Stappy, which by the way,
difference? You go, this is how Scott Stapp sings, and then how the fuck does Eddie Vedder sing it? This is how Scott Stapp sings, it's gotta be like that. With arms wide open.
No, you can't do that. Easy, pal. Oh, my goodness.
Well, that's the best thing. It can't be copyright infringement because you can't understand what I said.
Who knew we were going to do Scatman today? All right, so anyway.
Temple of the Dog.
Temple of the Dog.
The
two songs that you guys have heard on the radio over and over would be Hunger Strike and Say Hello to Heaven, which, of course... I could sing it, but, I don't want to show Shim up or anything. So we're going to get right into this. But we had mentioned in the previous episode, we were talking about that beef between Eddie Vedder and Nikki Sixx, right? Where Vedder had talked about, he was working in L.A. and he was he was at shows of bands that he would have never gone to. And he kind of called out Motley Crue and Girls, 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 to which Nikki Sixx, being a bit of a temperamental man, responded with, God, what did they were the most overrated band? Or
the
most boring
band.
Most boring. It was the most boring band.
Put it in the liner notes. Yeah.
So anyway, as I'm doing the research for Temple of the Dog, I found some footage from an old Headbangers Ball clip, and it's Eddie Vedder. This is after Pearl Jam, has already had their release, so they're on a Headbangers Ball, and Eddie Vedder was talking about just really. There's no frame of reference for the video that I was watching, but he says, quote, I mean, there's really good music coming out all of a sudden. Thank goodness. And the future can only be determined by how the music progresses and what the future of good songs are.
That's such an Eddie Vedder thing to say.
So, but if you think about it, like even back then, like with the story that we just had recently between the two of them, and then going back 31 years now to 1991, and he's still making those quotes. I mean, obviously, stay true.
Are you seriously like, oh, shock horror, Eddie Vedder never liked that style of music?
No. I just think it's interesting that I stumbled into a quote like that, right on top of when we were getting this story between Eddie Vedder and Nikki Sixx kind of, spatting with each other a little bit. One of the other things that we brought up in the previous episode is how grunge became grunge, the difference between grunge and alternative, and for me, it's always been very confusing. I've known some of the facts. I never really looked into it too much. But here I have some information specifically about how grunge became grunge. And
I'm really glad you found this because I've always wondered this. And the thing that bugged me is that bands, you would hear this all the time from bands, especially when you go back and you watch like the Headbangers Ball, the early stuff, the early interviews, and they would resent it so much, and they'd be like, I don't know why everyone calls it grunge, and I don't know why everyone calls us grunge, because we don't sound like Nirvana and Pearl Jam or whatever. And they were always so, I'm like, where did it even come from? And the fact that you found it, and you're sure it's this, right?
From my research, and again, if
Like-
I'm ever wrong or if we ever give misinformation on here, by all means, reach out to us. Let us know, because we want the correct information out there. If we ever have to go back and make a correction and retraction or something, we'll certainly do that. I mean, this is based on the information that I'm getting from books and videos and documentaries and all kinds of different things. And we kind of have the first time that the word grunge was used, at least the first recorded time that the word grunge was used. So we're going to start off here. There's a scene in Seattle. It started to develop in the mid-'80s, and one of the reasons that the scene really started to grow big was because none of the major tours would stop there. And I remember this, especially growing up in Portland. We're just south of Seattle. There was not a whole lot of acts that would really come through town because it was really out of the way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So was it?
Yeah, I remember when we would hit Seattle, people would mention it. But they wouldn't make a big deal. But whenever you'd hit Seattle, they would just go, "We're really glad you came here." They wouldn't really say much, but you'd always go like, "What do you mean?" No one else would say. You wouldn't be in like Texas, and they'd go, "We're really glad you came." You always go through Texas, but they'd be like, "We're really glad you came," and they'd be really appreciative. And then you put it together, you go, "Oh, that's right. It did take like 10 hours to get here." From the other shows.
Yeah, it's vastly different than almost anywhere else in the country, because I mean it's truly. And then again, we would also kind of run into this when I lived in South Florida, because that's a one-way trip down there. You're essentially going down and coming back up. Now it's a major market, which is why a lot of tours either start or end in South Florida, because the way that they can come down is you kind of hit up like Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa, and then Miami.
That's why there's a butt ton of bus companies in Florida. They all park the buses and trailers. There's companies that are just set up there, because you fly there, you get in your bus, and then you come back, and then you fly back to wherever you're going. That in Texas is one of the main hubs.
And that's one of the things I think.
But wait a minute, we're getting off track, because we want to get back to where was the first time someone said grunge?
Well, it's okay. So it's right here. It's right here. Oh, for Pete's sake! All right, so it's right here. So at least the first time on record that the word grunge was used, it was Sub Pop. That was the big label in Seattle that signed all these bands. That was kind of the one. They were the ones that had the demo. They were the
Island Def Jam. They were the Island Def Jam of grunge.
Exactly. And so it was
I know.
It was for a 1987 Sub Pop release for Green River. Now, if you tuned in to the Mother Love Bone episode, you would know exactly who Green River is. Jeff Ament and Stone Gossard were in Green River before Mother Love Bone, before Temple of the Dog, and before Pearl Jam. Anyway, so what they said here was for their EP, Dry as a Bone, and the quote, which was written by Bruce Pavitt of Sub Pop, quote, "Ultra loose grunge that destroyed the morals of a generation." And that's the words that he used to describe Green River's second EP.
I just got chills. For some reason, when you said that, I'm like, do you think he knew? I wonder if he knew. I wonder if it was like one of those things where he knows that he's a writer that people pay attention. I wonder if we could ever get it. We should reach out to him and we should say, "Hey man, we found this quote. Love your work. Did you know?" People used to ask me that about the Free Hugs video. When I was making the Free Hugs video, they were like, "Did you know it was going to be that successful?" And I said, yes. And I wonder if he knew. And by the way, the reason that I knew the Free Hugs video was going to do well was because it gave me a great feeling, and it gave everyone else who saw it a great feeling. So I remember thinking, well, that's just going to keep going. It's going to do well. And I had a good feeling about it. I can imagine that if he's in that position and it's this kind of genre that's coming up, I mean, he used the term very clearly. Yeah. Like, he basically named the genre. Ultra, like the fact that he gave an adjective before grunge, ultra loose grunge, not the new sound of grunge, as if like, hey, here's the first time you've ever heard it. He was like, ultra loose grunge that destroyed the morals of a generation. It's been used in such a sort of like throwaway style that it's like, yeah, you know what I mean, grunge. Like, I wonder if he knew he was coining a fucking massive term.
You never know. But so then I also got some information here on the difference between sort of alternative and grunge. Alternative was already kind of a big thing in the mid-'80s. It was... I watched a video, and this comes from one of the documentaries that I watched on this, where it says that also known as college rock.
College rock. So
it's between mainstream and underground, and it was never really meant to sell a lot of albums. But back in 1984, it started to gain a lot of attention because you had REM's Reckoning, Husker Du's Zen Arcade, and the Replacements' Let It Be, as well as some other big alternative bands. You got Dinosaur Jr., the Pixies, and Sonic Youth.
Dinosaur Jr.
All of them in there. Dinosaur Jr. is great, right?
Dinosaur Jr. is great. I love how much Sonic Youth didn't give a fuck. That was the first time. Actually, that's a lie. It's the second time. First time I ever heard a band that truly didn't give a fuck was the Sex Pistols, and my dad introduced me to it because he was like, "Oh, I started listening to Silverchair and Nirvana," and he was like, "Oh, you want to hear real rock and roll?" And I listened to the Sex Pistols, and I was like, "It's noisy, it's shit," because the drums and guitars didn't kick like Nevermind. And but then I heard Sonic Youth, and I was like, that sounds like a bunch of kids that don't give a fuck. That's what it sounds like.
So then you had major labels, since you had these bands that were starting to make it kind of big. It's the same thing that happened with grunge, where they noticed there was something there. One of the bands makes it big, and then all of a sudden the floodgates are open, and now they're trying to sign as many people as possible. So they jumped in, and they tried to sign all of these alternative bands. And one of the big alternative acts that's considered to really be one of the first ones that made it huge on the Billboard 200, Jane's Addiction.
Do you know why?
Why?
I know I'm asking because I love Dave Navarro. Love it. My favorite Chili Peppers record was always One Hot Minute. And that gets me canned. A lot of people say, like, dude, you're an asshole. That's your favorite record. It's the one that I discovered first with Red Hot Chili Peppers. And I still love a lot of the music on there. I think the guitar playing is amazing. But I have never been a fan of Jane's Addiction. And it's not because they're bad. And it's not because any of the people involved in it are bad. I just never understood why that big... Don't get me wrong. I can understand why people would like it. I never understood why it was so big. Why was it the first number one? Why was that so big? Was it just the first one that had that sort of groovy, funky but rocky fusion sort of thing going on? Because I used to put Jane's Addiction into grunge. I wouldn't have called them alt rock.
Okay.
I would have put them in with... Well, see, I used to call Smashing Pumpkins grunge as well. Like, I would call anything grunge if it had guitars. If it had guitars and drums and it was kind of noisy, it was fucking grunge. You know what I mean? Like, Jane's Addiction was grunge. Like, I never thought of them as alt. I thought of REM, perfect example. That ain't grunge. That's alternative.
Yeah,
that's college rock 101.
There you go. Well, that's something that we'll look forward to. I'll look into that more for a future episode. When we have these questions that we can't answer directly right now, we're going to look it up for a future episode.
Please, someone tell me, if you're a Jane's Addiction fan, tell me why you think they were the big deal thing. Because, I'd be very interested. Anyway,
and
I'm sorry. I keep interrupting. When do I get to say some of this shit? We talked about this.
Yeah, hold
on.
I can almost one-up your, Red Hot Chili Peppers take.
Okay.
I don't like them at all.
You don't like Red Hot Chili Peppers at
all?
I
don't. No, I don't. Or Jane's Addiction.
That when you were working at radio, were you allowed to say that? Did you get in trouble?
You're not really. You're not really. I mean, okay. When I was on the morning show, I could, because you're looking for personality. You're looking for opinions from people. You want to strike up a conversation, and especially if somebody has a take that's different than everybody else, that's good. But if you were just on at nights, like if I was on at Loudwire nights, I couldn't do a whole talk break where it's like, hey, Jane's Addiction sucks. I saw them in New Orleans, and it was 15 straight minutes of Perry Farrell moaning on the microphone with Dave Navarro playing the same 3 fucking notes, thinking that was a solo. I'm standing in ankle-deep mud in shock at how bad they were. Wow. And thank God for Kiss. And I don't even like Kiss all that much. But Kiss came out and killed it after that, man. Yeah. They came out and it was amazing. I'm not even I don't really like Kiss. I'll admit it. I don't really like Kiss either.
I feel like you're venting this frustration that you weren't allowed to say live on radio. And
I kind of am a little bit.
Flooding our podcast with it.
I kind of am a little bit. But seriously,
a little bit.
Ankle deep mud, and Perry Farrell's up there moaning his ass off.
I know.
What
I
are
only
you
saw them
doing,
once.
man?
I only saw them once, and it did reinforce my original sentiment. Anyway, but this is wait, where is it? No, we haven't gotten to the bit that I wanted to talk about.
Which
Okay,
part do you want to talk
go
about?
ahead
Because
with the next point.
we're on Mudhoney right now. You don't want to talk about Mudhoney?
No, you go to. I want to talk. You go.
I'll take this one, and you can take the next one.
Yeah.
All right, so Mudhoney's "Touch Me, I'm Sick." That was released in 1988, which was one of the key grunge bands because, again, Green River, when it split up, you had Amit and Gossard going to Mother Love Bone, and then, of course, you had the other guys from Mudhoney, or from Green River, then forming Mudhoney. And they started to get a lot of college radio play, and then especially over on BBC Radio's John Peel show. So this was the first time that really outside of the Northwest, other people were starting to experience grunge, I guess.
Right.
I mean, that was really kind of it. So do you want to take this next point then, Shim?
No, I just think...
take
wait a
the
second.
point!
What? The point? No, one of the... You got here, one of the... I'm reading, by the way, I'm reading off the notes that Brandon has put together for the podcast. One of the major keys to grunge was bands taking punk and slowing it down. Yeah, I know. Okay, whatever. But like, so that's not the bit that I. So the fun facts that everyone should know, right? This is the thing that I find interesting. All right.
Yeah.
Temple of the Dog began as a tribute to the late Mother Love Bone lead singer Andrew Wood. The album earned praise from music critics but didn't get wide recognition until '92, initially selling 70,000 copies in the US despite favorable reviews. The thing that I find hilarious, right?
Hold on, if anybody's curious about Mother Love Bone, go to a previous episode because that was episode 1 and 2 was Mother Love Bone.
We need to make a note. We should put the description, or actually put the pop-up, so that people can go and click and go and watch the previous one. We've got to start putting that in the podcast.
You put the pop-up.
MTV seemingly misrepresented Temple of the Dog in 1992 in a report from Kurt Lauder.
You don't know Kurt Lauder?
Nah, I don't care.
You guys never had MTV down there? Wait a minute, hold up.
I told you that things, dude. One word. Adidas. Some things didn't make it.
Oh, no, Kurt Lauder was the guy. He was the MTV News guy, man.
Kurt Lauder. He portrayed Temple of the Dog just having gotten together in 92 after Soundgarden and Pearl Jam had made it big with Bad Motorfinger in 10. He, quote, members of Soundgarden and Pearl Jam have joined together in a new side project called Temple of the Dog, whose debut album went 20 on this week's Billboard chart. What, fucking 3 years after it had been dropped? And
1 year.
It went fucking long enough. He does go on to mention that the group was formed in 90 when Wood passed away. So this is the thing that I find funny. This is just a great example of label stupidity. Despite having it was already out for a year, finally A&M Records realized that they essentially had a supergroup of the two biggest bands in the biggest scene at the exact moment. So after this, they decided to reissue the album, promoting Hunger Strike as a single, hence the reason it charted in 92. But at that point, how do you at the record label not know that there are members in your bands that are doing great and they got off? How do you not fucking know for a year? How does that just slip your fucking mind? I mean, it's just shocking and just depressing to go, dude, some of the two greatest singers in history. And it's one thing if it's like, hey, they just dropped it, like idiot fuck dude was like, oh, they just released it, but it's one thing if you're like, you are not allowed to make those mistakes if you work at the label that represents the music.
Well, maybe they. Well, hold on. Well, maybe
maybe.
No, hold
nothing.
on,
You know exactly what happened.
hold on. No, maybe what they did first is like, yes, they released Temple of the Dog first. That album came out, and then the Soundgarden Pearl Jam albums came out. So maybe what they did was they waited to do the run on both bands, and then when both bands made it big, that's when they decided to be like, oh, we need to re-release this and kind of push this back out there because the general public doesn't realize what this is. So we need to remind them what we have here.
Yeah, I think that they dropped the ball and then played catch up.
Hey, you're the one that's dealt with way more record labels than me.
Yeah, I
so I'm
think
gonna
that's
go with
most
that.
like. Very rarely will you have that type of. Yeah, I mean, look, tell me in the comments. Tell me, especially if there's anyone that actually works in the business that watches this, that goes, nah, man, I remember I knew a guy that was there. I didn't know anyone that was there, but I know based on history, like, that's the type of thing that people do, because the communication within labels half the time, it's like one guy works on this, one guy works on that. No one's really communicated that's a big problem with it. But what was the it's about as it's this is the definition that I come up with. All right, I'm going to give you the definition, then you can keep going with your notes. Okay, I remember this is the version of this happening in a record label. I was in high school. I was wearing fucking band t-shirts, Nirvana, all this fucking stuff, and then someone was wearing a Foo Fighters shirt, and I'm the idiot, I'm the douchebag that went up to this girl.
You are.
You remember this?
No,
I told you
I'm
this?
just saying you're a
I went up to
douchebag.
this girl
I'm
that was
agreeing.
wearing a Foo Fighters shirt, and I was like, hey, that guy, isn't it funny how much that guy looks like the drummer for Nirvana? Yeah.
Good job, buddy.
And I meant it. I meant it. And I was trying to start a conversation with her to be like, oh, I like rock and roll too. They kind of, and I just,
Kind of put your
couldn't
foot
have
in your
shot
mouth,
myself, couldn't have shot myself in the foot more. If I had had a sniper rifle, I couldn't have done it better. So, yeah, that's the version of like someone at the record label turned around and was like, oh, do you like Pearl Jam? Oh, yeah. Do you like Soundgarden too? Oh, yeah. Do you know that you have a supergroup in your catalog? What?
I think
I've
you
only
need to
been
sing a
working here
song.
for 6 months.
I think you need to sing a song about it. Could you do that for us real quick?
Oh, for Christ. I can imagine some guy. I can imagine some guy being like, I've been working at the label now for 6 months. I hope I don't get fired. But someone just told me I was sitting on a gold mine. I dropped the ball and now I'm hungry. Cause you're fired, yeah!
Think he got fired?
I don't think that's copyright infringement.
I don't think so either. We'll find out,
We're
I
good.
guess.
We know. We'll find out soon enough.
All right,
As long as I Eddie Vedder / Scott Stapp the last actual line, so it doesn't sound like I'm going. Just muppet it up. Just muppet up the last line, so it'll be like, what did he say? Not copyright infringement.
We don't know. We don't
Anyway,
know.
let's get back to what you were talking about.
He's Australian, maybe it's his accent. We can't understand the poor fella.
So the band, they did reform and they did tour a little bit in 2016. They were celebrating the 25th anniversary of the self-titled album. Eddie Vedder did not actually go with them. He cited family commitments as the reason why he didn't. And I remember you asked in a previous episode of the History of Rock specifically about how quickly this album was recorded, right? So go ahead and take it away.
Well, no, okay. So the reason that I agree that I think the reason this album would have been as pivotal as it was, because the album was recorded in 15 days. Most albums that are, especially in the grunge era, man, like Rage Against the Machine's first record was recorded in like 5 days, and most of it was done in the first night, which is dope. It's the coolest thing ever. And Nevermind was done in like 3 weeks. Like, great records are just the perfect synergy of time and great players and great moments, and it's a time capsule. So this whole album was done in 15 days, and upon listening to a couple of tracks, I can tell that Chris Cornell's vocals, some of the vocals were done, at least it sounds like, I can't guarantee, but it sounds like they were done in the room. And when I say in the room, I mean the band's playing, and he's not in a separate vocal booth, he's in the room, and it becomes much more of a roomy sound, and it adds to the vibe of the whole recording process. So yeah, that's pretty good. Done in 15 days, not bad.
An album that Shim has not listened to, despite
Nah, not the whole thing.
fact that
Haven't listened to the whole thing.
I asked him, could you listen to the album, please, so we could.
You didn't. You asked me to listen to the other one, and then I dropped the ball, and I forgot to listen to this one. Thank you for bringing it up.
Oh, but you'll crank Aerosmith with the family when you're on vacation.
Oh, you saw that post?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And when I saw the post, I was like, I wonder if he peppered in some Temple of the Dog in there.
No, totally dropped the ball.
But hey, if your kids are rocking Aerosmith, you're on the right
What
path.
are you gonna say?
You're on the right path, at least.
Yeah.
Quick side note: are your kids into music other than rock? Like, is there anything that you're stuck with?
There is, yeah.
But is there stuff
my-
that you don't like?
Here's the funny thing. My boy loves Motley Crue. and Bon Jovi. Yeah, when we put on
Wow.
Living on a Prayer, the moment that Living on a Prayer thing comes up, he just starts going, fuck, here it comes. Here comes the drop.
Does he sing along too? Does he go?
Yeah, he started mouthing the words to stuff as well. Like Edamame. Do you know there's a new hip hop song that's really big that the kids are loving called Edamame. A papia like a pea like a Edamame. And so they know when that line's coming up, they just go. But when that one line comes up,
They all
look at
sing
each
it
other
loud
and
and
go,
proud.
Edamame. And they're miming along with it. So it's just a matter of time until they're fucking halfway there. They're gonna start doing it.
Oh my God! All right, we got a
I
few
know.
more facts.
That's why I started putting on Aerosmith. Aerosmith is a bridge from hair metal to grunge.
Yeah, it kind of is because
It
you
is.
know that's going to be a fantastic deep dive for us, and that's gonna take us back to what like our potential book club that we had talked about, where we were going to start with the Aerosmith. Oh God, I'm forgetting the name of the book, but it's the one that's written by the different band members, and it's events that are from their perspective.
Oh, dude, I love that book. I love some of the stuff that I saw in that book because, especially when they're doing their drug phase, when they're talking about the period where they were on drugs and their different accounts based on the different drugs they were on, is so dope.
All right, so we might have to do that. If you want to do that with us, we'll do potentially a book club, a rock and roll book club here for you. But we have a few more facts that we can get to before we have to wrap up this episode because we're already coming down to the end, baby.
Go.
Some of the facts that you maybe heard in the previous episode, Chris Cornell, he was actually the roommate of Andrew Wood. And Andrew Wood was the lead singer of Mother Love Bone, who was the inspiration for this, for Temple of the Dog. And Cornell, he got back from tour the day that Wood passed away. And then he went on tour to Europe a few days later, and that's when he began writing. And there was two specific songs that are on the album that he wrote, really all about Andrew Wood. One, of course, being Say Hello to Heaven. And that's one of the big sort of major singles that you've probably heard on the radio before. And the other one is Reach Down, which is a lengthy song. I believe it's over 11 minutes, that song is. And see, that's why I wanted you to listen to the album. I wanted to get your feedback on that. Although he did, before we jumped in here, Shim did listen to my favorite song on the album, which is Pushing Forward Back.
Yeah.
And that's going to be one of the recommendations when we come up at the next episode when we're talking about what songs that we recommend and what's going to go on our History of Rock playlist, which you can find on Spotify right now. There's only 3 songs on it because we're only including these songs. We're getting 3 from every album. That might change. I don't know. I thought 3 was a good number.
It'll change as the playlist grows for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I could be convinced, I guess, to add more, but it would take a lot of convincing to add more than 3 songs from an album because there's going to be, like, when we get to Pearl Jam's 10 and you can only pick 3 songs off of that album, like, that's where the discussion's going to come in. It's going to get pretty damn heated. You know what I mean? Like, we might fight. It's going to be a good thing that Shim and I are half a world across from each other. You know what I mean?
This is going to be good. I think it's going to be good when we get to Rage Against the Machine.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Okay, quick side note. They did postpone again.
Yes.
So we're now looking at February of 2023.
2023.
And
and I want to go on record. I said that touring wasn't going to come back in full force until mid-2023.
Well, this would be early 2023.
That.
This is true.
Yeah, but they'll probably cancel it again.
And I think, I think this did work out for us for the best because it was starting to sneak up on us again. Shim getting over here to the United States was probably going to be a huge pain in the ass. So them postponing's probably working out for everybody. And I know
they're doing it for me. They know. They know that I'm here. They've watched the podcast. I told Tom, I'm like, dude, can you just push it a bit more? He was like, yeah, I got you back.
No, and here's the goal. The goal is to get the History of Rock podcast big enough to where when they come to town, we'll actually get to sit down with them and we do a History of Rock podcast with them about pick an album. We could do Evil Empire. We could do self-titled.
I'd do the OG. I'd do the self-titled.
Yeah? All right.
I'd fucking do self-titled.
All right. I'm cool with that, man.
Such a pivotal album.
I'm more than cool with that.
That'd be a dream come true. That'd be a bucket list moment for sure.
Oh, and we are now the first show on that leg of the tour because originally it was going to be Don Haskins Center in El Paso, and then Las Cruces. And we got our and if you followed Rockstar 101 at all, you know the fiasco.
You were sweating.
God.
You were sweating. Fuck.
The fiasco that I went through, man, to get those tickets.
For anyone that doesn't know, I woke up to like 20 text messages from like, okay, cool. Okay, wait a minute. Oh, shit. No. And just like, it was one sentence things of like, and it went over the space of 20, 30 minutes. And he was like, okay, I'm waiting. Dude, there's a problem with the site. Dude, I can't. I said I had it. No, it's sold. No, wait, I've got another one. Okay, we might be at the back. Okay, we're definitely at the back. Ah, fuck. Can you go to the next state over? I was like,
oh, man. Yeah. I was venting to Shim while Shim was asleep.
I was asleep. I woke up and I literally woke up groggy. And the last text was, okay, I've got the tickets, but it's in the others. We've got it for a different show, but they're floor seats. And I was like, I just woke up. I was like, cool, man, good work. Thanks for going through that.
Not floor, close to floor. We're right down. We got great seats.
You're gonna get hurt on. You get hurt on the floor at Rage Against the Machine. So anyway.
You don't want to go jump in the pit, dude?
I would fucking kill myself in that pit. I would go. I'm gonna jump the fence. I'm definitely gonna jump over. I'm definitely gonna jump.
Can I film it and then we'll put that up and be like, hey, here's Shim jumping the fence at Rage.
Dude, in case anyone doesn't know, the perfect time to jump the fence is 60 seconds after everyone else jumps the fence, because the security guards rush the people that are already in there, and then you just slip on in. Everyone thinks everyone does this. They all go, oh, that guy's jumping, let's go. And then they see you. You want to wait until the security guards, come on, like veteran. You want to wait till everyone's back is turned. They're trying to get people out of the pit, and then you can fucking put a flashlight up and light a match and be like, yeah, I'm coming in. They're never gonna see you. They're trying to get someone guy's arm.
You have a big old light with a siren going. Be like, I'm going, bitch.
Yeah.
Rage!
They'll never see you. Yeah.
Oh,
I bet money on it.
All right, well, we're going to wrap up this episode of the History of Rock. We're going to get to some more facts about Temple of the Dog coming up here in the next episode. I'm going to do a little research, and we're going to find out some more about Jane's Addiction, why that one may have been kind of one of the first big alternative albums to really make it big right there. And
excellent. All right. And then in the meantime, as always, hit the like and subscribe button. Hit the comments. Make sure you comment on all the stuff that we asked you guys about. It helps us, and we're very interested in what you guys think about.
I got flooded with comments about Star Wars versus Star Trek, by the way.
I saw that as well, and that's good.
It's all
it's
Star
a very
Wars,
important.
Everybody thinks that you're the biggest nerd on the planet.
No, I had a bunch of. Okay, I did have a bunch of mums come up and say Star Trek was better, but Star Trek is better. Star Trek is definitely better. Anyway, we'll be seeing you guys next week with part 2. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah,
part
I think this is kind of our comfort zone here. Is that we're going to have enough information for each album. We want to keep it to about 30 minutes. Of course, we're going over every single episode so far, but right around 30 minutes. And then we'll be able to split it into 2 parts, and then we can also kind of rehash some things that maybe we'll talk about in a previous episode, like we did with Grunge, and then also we had that Eddie Vedder, Nikki Sixx beef that we covered in this episode. So we'll be covering all that stuff coming up.
And in the meantime, you guys have a great rest of your week. Stay fearless. His name is Brandon. He's the DJ.
His name is Shim. He is the rock star. Class dismissed.